Hi there. In this video, I want to go over one of my recent talks called From Metadata to Lakehouse. Or should I rather say, I want to go over the artifacts that I had produced for that talk, right? So in this talk, I talked about building a metadata-driven framework, or metadata-driven frameworks were important for Lakehouse automation. And I have started building out patterns both for Microsoft Fabric and for Synapse Analytics to support a baseline data engineering use case. Right. In this use case, we're going to go through today. We're going through the Synapse Analytics use case, where we're using Synapse pipelines to ingest data from a relational database or an Azure SQL database. We're then feeding metadata from those activities forward using log events, etc., or should I say a log table with the metadata from the activities to then execute further Spark jobs to bring our bronze data, typically which will land in Parquet from our SQL Server database, and it will process that into Silver for our Delta tables. As our first data engineering iteration. So we're bringing from bronze to silver. And we're doing this using a very programmatic and parameterized approach. The prerequisite for this, or for this tutorial, will be a clean Synapse Analytics workspace that is Git integrated or has been attached to a repository. You'd also need a key vault in Azure, as well as two SQL databases. You need one for your metadata store, and you need another one for your data source that you're going to be ingesting into your bronze layer, right? So when it comes to the SQL part, I'm not going to go over that. What you can do is in the assets folder, you'll find all the configuration SQL database scripts that you need to generate your configuration assets. You need not to populate anything in here for this demo. It's going to populate itself. Right. The next thing we need to do, or should I say the first thing we're going to do then to get started, is we're going to just download the repo. That's the first thing. Right. We're going to open up that folder. I'm doing this off screen, so just give me 1 second. And I'm going to extract all. Okay. That is now extracted. Right, so I'm keeping that off screen just so I have it available for the next actions. Right, I'm going to go and delete the zip file, keep things tidy. Right, so then in our Synapse workspace, that is Git connected. What we're going to start doing, so this is stock standard, there's nothing in here, no linked services beyond what gets deployed by Synapse Analytics. There's no notebooks, there is no pipelines, there is nothing. It's just Git connected, and I have created my Spark pool. This one's called Bronze. Well, I'll name this cluster Bronze Silver. This pool Bronze Silver. Right. I have no SQL dedicated pools, and there's no Data Explorer. There's no nothing. There's no purview attached, no nothing. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is we want to be able to get our linked services in from our downloaded files. Right. So if we go to our repository, and we can see in our source repo that I only have the default connectors. The first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and upload some files here, and I'm going to go to my Lakehouse main branch download that I just did. I'm going to go into assets. I'm going to go into Synapse. And we're going to go into linked services. Right, I'm going to go ahead, select those ones, and upload them and commit. Now that I've got those up, I'm going to go back to my demo workspace. I'm going to hit the refresh button, and we're going to see our keywords, our linked services updated. And I think something's actually gone pear-shaped because, oh no, it hasn't. It just hasn't shown. Never mind. My mistake. Right. So everything in this demo is fully parameterized. Right. So we'll see how we use parameters to control all our connections. So there we go. Publishing that. Waiting for the ARM scripts to be generated. Hopefully sometime today. Now, obviously, because everything is so ultra parameterized, it has to go and validate everything during the publish activity when it's building out the ARM templates. There we go. Awesome. Done. Right. The next thing we need to tackle is our linked datasets, right, or integration datasets. So we need to create a folder here called dataset, if I remember correctly. Yes, it is. So what we're going to do in the repo is we're just going to go ahead and say new folder. And because this the repo uses a stock standard blob storage account that doesn't have hierarchies, we're going to need to have to create a file in here because it's, hey, virtual folders, right? So this one is called data set. We're going to create a file called dummy.md, just a dummy markdown file, just to we're going to commit that. Right, so we have a folder. Now we have data set. Right. Now let's go ahead and upload the dataset files. We're going to hit browse. We're going to go up one level. We're going to go to the dataset folder, grab those three, hit open, hit commit, and go back here. We have no datasets. We refresh. Look at that. We have our datasets. Well parameterized, all is good, right? And you can see here, everything is parameterized, key vault, URLs, everything. So this should work no problem. Hit publish, get those up. Now it's important we do this in the right order because everything has, there are so many dependencies in everything here that if we upload the pipelines before we have datasets and we try to publish, the ARM template's going to just fail. Well, the validation is going to fail, so we're missing a whole bunch of stuff. Right, so now we have done the linked services, we've done the datasets. Now, before we do the pipelines, I want to do the one data engineering task for my Python notebook. So I'm going to go ahead and import. And the notebook is in here. So we got this gen parquet to silver. So I'm going to go ahead and import that. I'm going to go ahead and attach this to my main cluster. I'm going to go ahead and say commit. Right, so now that's in source control. Just to understand, this notebook can process multiple partitions in the bronze layer, right? So, the source format has to be Parquet. For this version, it's not so parameterized that you can build up in input data frames super programmatically with, that contains CSV or JSON or whatever. Data frames has to be Parquet, or the source data sets has to be Parquet. And what it does, it takes the latest ingested batch, right, from a storage account, and drops it into a delta table. And we have some ways, we have some delta table target modes, so we can do transactional append or incremental inserts. In other words, we just add to the delta tables, and that this is appropriate when you know 100% that your source is always incremental. There's no duplication, or you don't care about duplication. You just want to add data, right? Or you have a reload table, which means literally just overwrite the whole thing, just truncate and reload. You have a merge insert. Merge insert meaning I'm just going to do an incremental insert where I'm watching my key columns. So if I have a business key specified, or here we go, it's somewhere up here, like this one, primary key column, right? Then for my merge insert, I'm going to go merge into, and then when match, do nothing. When not match, insert. Just so that we just insert whatever we don't have, and then upsert is literally merge into, when match, update, when, or update star, when not match, insert star. I mean that's as basic as it gets. Cool. So that's this sort of notebook, and this Juniper or Spark notebook, and what it's built up to do. Cool. We're going to go ahead and publish this just so that we can get that dependency up before we go ahead and insert or add our pipelines. So that's now been deployed or published. Let's go back to our repository, and we need to do this. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that dummy file. Thank you very much. You're now gone. And I need to create another folder called pipeline. So we're going to go ahead and say new folder, pipeline, create our trusted dummy.md file. Right. And commit that so we get the folder created. That's in. Then go ahead to this pipeline folder and upload files, browse, go up one level, go into the pipeline folder, go ahead, upload those 4 files and say commit. Boom, there we go. Let's go ahead and delete this dummy.md. Okay, so now we have everything we need inside of our pipeline, inside of our workspace. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and refresh. And now, if we go to pipelines, we have some pipelines. Cool. So let me explain how this works. It's we have a generic SQL to Parquet pipeline. All this does, it takes basically a source SQL connection, right, and syncs that into ADLS Gen 2 as Parquet. Straightforward, no real fancy work here. We add a transaction ID column, which is, hey, it's one of the source parameters coming from a pipeline activity, right? So we just add that as a column, and that's it. That's all we do. Then to fire this one, we have this, or to run the whole process. So think of it this way. We load data into, and if we go back here, so we have this pipeline here that takes source data, lands it into an ADLS Gen 2 folder. That storage account looks, let's see, I think it's that one. It should be this one. So if we go into storage account, that's another one. It will be in the docs or in the README. You need to create the bronze, silver, and gold storage container in the storage account that you're configuring to drop data into. Right. So in the bronze, we load by dataset name. This is how we've named it in the system. A schema and an entity. Right. Underneath there, we have year, month, day, hour. Right. Boom. Here's our Parquet data. Okay. So this was run earlier today. Just for good measure, I'm going to go ahead and delete this folder. Boom, everything's gone. I'm going to do the same thing for silver. Silver loads, if we look at the Lakehouse approach or the medallion architecture, bronze is equivalent to our Lakehouse, to our data lake raw zones, where we load data as close as possible to our raw format. We then, every iteration or every load process will then be sliced by datetime construct, and that's just makes it easy to handle, so we can go back and reload data later. What we then do in our silver zone, so silver is our cleansed data, right? So this would be data that is deduplicated. We've added some additional metadata like insert dates, some sort of historization of the data. We might have done some dedupe of data. We might have added some more metadata or processing attributes, like where did you come from, what system loaded you, what's the source file data, those kind of things, right? But we load this in silver into a Delta table, right? Now, and it's the same thing, system, schema, entity, our data file, and our our transaction log. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this because, hey, why not? Right. Go ahead and delete. Say yes. Right. Let's go back here. So how do we fill this out and what are we missing? So everything is controlled from this main load raw folder. Now, in real world, you would have another configuration connection, another set of metadata that you would load to execute this one pipeline, right? That takes data from raw to silver, right? And that would, here's my source data. I have some, in this case, you can see I have a schema filter. I have an entity or a table filter, and this is all SQL wildcards, so it's like statements, right? I have my source systems SQL server, so that's the FQDN of my, in this case, my Azure SQL DB. And then I have the source database, the SQL username, the key vault secret, right? The storage account, right, which was the one we were browsing around in. And again, the configuration key connections and the key vault URL. So let me go ahead and grab all of these. So let's start with the key vault. So I'm just going to go here and grab a key vault URL. Right. I'm going to go here and paste that in. Right, that's my first hurdle. Oh, I need to validate this, that I didn't do any weird prefixing with the key vault. No, it's straightforward URL. Cool. Just want to check that. Right, back to here. Right, so that's the first thing we need to slot in. I then, for all my SQL usernames, because the same logical server I've deployed, they're all called server admin. And guess what? My key vault secret name, which didn't. Okay, so also server admin for this, I have the same thing here for my source database. And I have the same thing here. Storage account. I'm just going to grab that quick. There we go. I'm going to go and grab, sorry, it's the storage account, just that. Oh no, just that piece. Boom. There's my storage account. Right, my database name, so it's configurations. DB is the main one. And I have deployed all my test data is in an AdventureWorks Lite database, right? So I've deployed or created an Azure SQL DB and restored the demo data set. So that's what that database is called. And then the server name. Oops, daisy, not there. Just hold on there. Boom. The server name. Just going to go ahead and cheat and copy it from here. Right, and there, and paste that in there. Paste that in there. I think we're good. Database name, filters. Yeah, let's go ahead and I want to run a quick test. Right, so we're going to just take we're going to use the default filter. So we're going to take the customer and customer address table. Right, we're going to go ahead and publish all of this quick, just so that we make sure everything is in sync. And then, okay, all our code is published. Let's see the ARM templates being built. Generating templates and done. Right, we're going to go ahead and say trigger now with all the settings we just populated, all the input parameters. And as I said, there would be a main control or another control pipeline, orchestration pipeline that would feed these parameters in whilst executing this pipeline. Right, cool. We trigger that. We can go and look at the monitoring of this. So obviously we get our source assets. Hopefully nothing breaks. It's the first time I execute this. Yeah, no, it works fine. There you go. We got some assets out. We can see our two tables, our customer and customer address table should be. Right, and customer address, and we can see we get a whole bunch of stuff in here. How this manifests in the back end is that when we're executing, there's a logging step that populates this logs table, and you can see here we have two tables that we just executed for, or two logs entries for what we just busy getting. And you can see is process set to 0. That means the data has been loaded from the source table into an appropriate sliced raw zone or bronze zone partition, right? In a storage account, we have a transaction ID, which is a unique GUID per line of metadata that is generated from our during our metadata retrieval or during the lookup task. So that's all been done for us, right? And we should now be injecting data or running our notebooks. Oh, failure. Oops. That is bad. Real life troubleshooting now. Huh. Interesting. What happened? So load rule worked. Who did it? No, it failed. There you go. So it loaded everything. Well, I know there's an error in the notebook execution. Let's get metadata. Let's see what the error is. Oh, our key vault is invalid. There's a parameterization mistake in our lookup task. Perhaps I didn't patch that. Let's have a look. Right, real world troubleshooting. So if we go into load silver and we have this lookup task, and we go to settings, no, that looks fine to me. Did I not pass this in? Maybe I forgot to pass it in this. Let's see, settings. Sorry. That's why it didn't work. So let's go ahead and pass in that parameter and save it. Sorry. This will be fixed in source control, or in the source code, so you don't need to do this. Let's go ahead and commit. Let's go ahead and publish. Go ahead and say OK. Right, let's go ahead and wipe those mistakes. So we're just going to go here and say delete from, yeah. Where is processed equals 0? Right, so I just want to delete those 2 rows. Boom, done. Let's rerun. Okay, let's go ahead and regenerate or rerun this. Cool, so this has now been deployed. I'm gonna go ahead and say trigger now. Hopefully everything works fine. Should take a couple of seconds for the first run to complete. 10 seconds or so, or 15 seconds maybe. 2 pipelines, that should be done super quick. And there we go, done. Okay, and then now we're running a Spark notebook, and this time, it's not seeing the inner activity. So if we go into pipeline executions and we look at, let's refresh those. There you go. Right, let's say load silver. Right, this is now executing, and we have one. Let's just look at the output. Yeah, so it's one Spark execution as bundle the customer table and the customer address table. And so that's now being executed. And let's see what this happens. This should be fairly quick. I think whilst that's running, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't browse to these data sets. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so here is my silver zone. So it hasn't generated not yet. It's busy. Obviously, it's Spark job, so it's busy starting. So let's just warm up the cluster we got running. I just want to go ahead and, sorry, not the cluster, the serverless endpoint. Just want to go ahead and say, yeah, pull in some, make sure our metadata is running. Right, there we go. Serverless pool warmed up. Yeah, we have data in those. Let's see if we have any. No, Spark cluster still running. Oh, let's go monitor that. Let's have a look. Yeah. Waiting. So, Andreas, on the future here. I ran out of time during the recording because I had a meeting that was Jason with me stopping recording. So I eventually, well, the Spark job's eventually finished. So I just want to show the results. So in other words, we had our notebook execution, or this execution pipeline that happened. So we got the raw jobs. Wait, are we in the, yeah, we're in the right ones. Are we? Yes, we are. So in the execution, why are we in the wrong? Oh. Here we go. So when we executed the notebook, or in the Parquet to Silver execution in the for each, so we've got one one entry from the lookup, which is the list of tables. So you can see here we had the customer table and the customer address table that the Spark job executed. And if we look at that, we can see that we can see how that parameterization came in. Right, so we see our the storage accounts, some of the container names, or the target container name, etc., etc. We got the list of tables, so the customer table and the customer address table. We've got and it put through the business keys, etc. We can see the execution, how it went, and we can see here that it took 50 seconds to run or generate these two delta tables. So if we go and look at what this looks like as the final product, so if we go into the silver layer, again, remember what I said, we're mimicking the bronze folder structures. We'll have bronze or we'll have silver, dataset name, schema, table, and that's it. Well, that's it when it comes to silver, right? So we have the dataset name, the schema, and then the two tables with the delta log and the Pocket file, right? So we're able to obviously go here and say select top 100. It's a delta table, and off we go. And this should generate our data. Now, the in the silver layer, the delta table gets regenerated according to default settings, but also I pass in the transaction IDs. So from the transaction log, the process log, right, and the transaction date time, etc. Right, so we see when things got injected, and you have traceability back to your source tables or your source ETLs, and we can also validate that in our SQL, right? So in our actual load log. So if we go and grab this transaction log ID, and we go to our management studio, and we just say where UUID equals sorry, UID, my bad. Sorry, I think it's transaction ID. Sorry, my mistake. There you go. And here we go. So this was the execution we had for the customer table, which is, if we go and look at the Lakehouse, this is our customer table, right? We see when we inserted it, or when the raw process was finished, and we can also see here when right. So this gives you only the date, right? This is not down to the timestamp, but at least you can trace it back. And so we can, if there's a discrepancy in the silver layer, or we're having some data duplication, or there's something that doesn't balance, we can see if there's been multiple records for, based on transactions, we can trace it back all the way back to source ETL. Cool. And that's all I want to go through in this session. Back to the original clip. Well, let's recap. So basically, we have what we've done so far is we have grabbed a copy of the repo. We have inserted or uploaded the linked services, the data sets, the notebook we imported, and then the pipelines. We then went into the raw pipeline, and we updated the parameters so that they're representative of our configuration, right? And then we just executed this pipeline. And my Spark clusters are taking long to start up. Right. And then in the end, we have then taken data from source system, loaded it in bronze, according to the medallion architecture principles. And then we have forward loaded into silver according to the same medallion principles. Right. And in the next video, we're going to go through the artifacts in building out data models and serviceable data artifacts in our gold zone. Right. Thank you very much for watching, and hope you learned something. Ciao.